name's Shelley. I work at Bristol Children's Hospital in Bristol, well, obviously, and I am a senior cardiac technician. I started the apprenticeship back in February 2022, so I'm just coming to the end now. I'm just waiting for my endpoint assessment, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, let's go from there.
No, brilliant. Okay, so if you're ready, I will ask you a few questions then, so we can get an overview of how you're feeling during the time on programme. So how did you hear about your apprenticeship in the first place?
Well, so our department, our goal is to become a fully accredited team, and we're hoping to be the first one in the country to be able to achieve that. And I've always had a goal to have a good career. I'm quite a career-driven person. So I was told about the apprenticeship from my manager, actually, when he decided that we're going to go for a fully accredited team. And when he told me about the apprenticeship, I thought, yeah, that sounds about right. I definitely want to do that. So put my name forward for it and I managed to get onto it.
Brilliant. So what was your background before you started, college, school? Was it
Okay, so it's a bit of a long one. So I actually don't come from a healthcare background. I've only been a senior tech here for coming up to 6.5 years now. And I actually came from a retail background before that. So I was actually a store manager for 10 years. I know, I don't look that old, but that's where I come from, and I always knew that I was not in the right job. So I had actually applied for university many years ago when I was younger, in my teens, and unfortunately didn't get in. I was rejected, so I sort of just fell into a job into retail, and I stuck it out for 10 years. So that was my background. Then I decided, actually, no, I do need to go for a career that I actually want to do. I don't want to be in retail all my life. I'd like to have some weekends back if I can. So I decided to change career and come into the NHS. Helping people has always been in my nature anyway, and working with children is just a bonus, to be honest with you. I'm quite a very childlike myself anyway, so it works quite well for me. So in which case I stayed here, worked my way up. So I was actually a temporary technician for a while. Luckily, they liked me so much they decided to offer me a permanent position. And then since then, I've worked my way up and become a senior technician now. So I have a few techs underneath me now that I manage and look after.
So how come you didn't consider going to university instead?
So say again, sorry.
Just how come you didn't consider going to university instead?
So I did apply for university. And unfortunately, I was rejected due to the grades that I had. So the diploma that I had originally taken wasn't a science background, and the course that I would like to have done required me to have a science background. So unfortunately, they rejected me. So coming here and then being given the opportunity to do the level 4 apprenticeship gave me that stepping stone to now move forward further into my career.
So what did your role look like during your time on programme? Responsibilities at the beginning compared to what responsibilities you've got towards the end of it?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the apprenticeship, my role, I was mainly in ECG and assisting in second person in the exercise testing as a second person. So I, the last couple of years, have been mostly teaching and training ECG for other members of staff. So that can be students, nurses, even doctors sometimes, believe it or not, they come in to see me and I'll teach them ECG. So that's mostly what I did beforehand. Now we've gone through the apprenticeship and we're sort of, well, I'm coming out the other side. I would say that my role it's still very much ECG based, still very much exercise testing based. But I now do other things. So I do Holter and BP analysis, and I'm able to do a full report and do that independently. But I'm also able to do other things now as well that the apprenticeship taught me. So I'm now able to confidently do an audit on our services, happily do research if anything is like that is required. And other general day-to-day things that we need to know in regards to doing our job. So SOPs, risk assessments, all those sort of things I'm now a part of and I get involved in. So
Oh, that's great news to hear. How did CSR help you develop during your programme and the benefits of your apprenticeship?
Okay, so believe it or not, a lot of people tell me I come across quite a confident person, but in the beginning I was actually not a confident person whatsoever. My skills in regards to IT and getting back involved into education was quite daunting for me. If I was to say, it's been 16 years since I last stepped foot into an educational program. It was quite daunting. So the apprenticeship really, really helped me just to introduce me slowly, to remind me of how things work in regards to what you need to do, so your assessments and competencies and how to write things out, things like that. And I would say I'm not exactly IT competent. I'm not very good at using a computer, but again, going through the apprenticeship, the different assignments that you're required to do, you do tend to learn things as you go along. And my tutor in particular was really helpful. She showed me how to, use different programs to create all these different assignments. So I would definitely say the apprenticeship not only built my confidence, but it developed my capabilities as well to do different things, as well, especially my IT skills for sure.
Brilliant. While I've obviously been on programme, did you have a workplace mentor or manager who was especially supportive? How did they help you confidence and abilities to grow as well in the workplace?
Yeah, okay. So again, here in our department, we actually have an educational lead. So she oversees anybody that's involved in any courses, again, so students, that could be PTP program, STP, or people like myself, so on the apprenticeship. As I said earlier, I'm very much career driven. I like to look after myself, so I'm actually very much a self-learner. And at the beginning of my apprenticeship, when I first started, I very much had our educational lead with me along the way. I actually found it not suffocating, that's not necessarily the right word, but I didn't like to be looked over. I like to look after myself. So we actually had a bit of a chat, and I explained sort of how I felt and how I would like to do things. And we actually agreed and said, let's give it a trial run, let's see what happened. And I was able to independently look after myself. So I made sure my assignments are done, my competencies, research, all of that was done by myself. However, she was always there in the background to support me if needed. And of course, when we do the apprenticeship, you are required to, or for my apprenticeship in particular, required to go off to do respiratory placement as well. But she was able to communicate with another hospital and was able to get me that placement that I needed to be able to achieve the competencies for the apprenticeship. So she was still there in the background, but I would say that I was very much more of a self-learner. However, I would really like to point out that the CSR tutor was fantastic. She was so supportive, and if I needed anything at all, she was more than happy to let me drop her an email or even a WhatsApp. Believe it or not, she'd happily let me do it if I was a little bit stuck. So yes, I had an educational lead here that helped me if I needed it, but also the CSR tutor was fabulous as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's good to hear. What would you say, based on your experience, are the most important aspects for an employer to include when planning an apprenticeship programme?
All right, so I'm not too sure how many employers we've got here on the call, but for me personally, time is so important. I think when you first join on this apprenticeship, you don't realise how much is actually involved and how much time you need to be able to achieve everything that you need to achieve. I understand that people should be given 20% study time, but I can definitely guarantee that it is not enough. It does burn into your personal time, evenings, weekends. So myself personally, what I did, I actually approached my manager here and asked if I was able to, if possible, spend a morning a week by myself to be able to complete competencies, because a lot of them are required to be done in-house. So I was able to negotiate that, and he agreed. I was able to still have my study time, my one day off a week to do my lessons or complete assignments. But I was also able to negotiate a morning once a week here to complete my competencies, and that was so helpful. Another thing that I would really like to point out to any employers would be, if you can, I know it's not always possible if your department is very similar to mine, staff restrictions can be an issue. You might not have enough staff calling in sick, etc. But as a student, and doing the apprenticeship, we're trying to upskill and learn new things to, of course, develop ourselves, but also to help the department. I personally had a few issues trying to get into different areas of our department to be able to upskill. So if I was to say anything to any employer, would be to try and help them upskill. If you can get someone to cover their particular area that they might be covering. So for example, for me, it was ECG. I needed someone to come in to cover me whilst I was able to then go off and do other things in the department. So I would just really encourage you to just try and help cover what they may be doing to help them upskill and go off and experience different areas.
Brilliant. My last question is, obviously you've mentioned you're waiting your endpoint assessment date. What do you see for your plans for the future? Do you see yourself going on to do the level 6?
I am. So that is exactly what I'm going to be doing next. So as long as everything goes well in the EPA, yes, that is my future plan. So I do plan on applying for the level 6 apprenticeship and hopefully officially becoming a cardiac physiologist, fingers crossed. And then from there, I've got quite a few plans actually. So I do plan on creating an ECG service. As I said, I do a lot of teaching and training, but I plan to extend that out to the region. So offering other hospitals the chance to do some teaching and training in regards to ECG practice, ECG analysis, and also extending it into GP surgeries as well. So that's currently on the back burner. We've sort of inquired about that a little bit. But also my main passion, if you like, is sports cardiology. I have a great passion for football in particular, actually, but I love sports cardiology. So getting involved in the exercise testing and CPETs for me is going to be my thing and my go-to. So if I can, fingers crossed, I would love to be able to get into sports rehabilitation, so potentially for people that have had cardiac surgery. And you never know, fingers crossed, maybe into a local football team to start helping sort out their medicals. Who knows?
Oh, thank you, Shelley. That sounds like you've had a really positive experience while you've been on programme.
Fantastic, actually. I was very apprehensive at the beginning, but I've come out the other end, and I would recommend it to anybody.